So as I'm looking in here, where I'm at right now, notice there's a navigation in a more modern fashion here down the left side of this panel. And I'm in a home page, or insights page as we call it. And every user can come in here and you can have insights that are partially AI driven about the things that we require our attention on, things that are overdue, things that are out of compliance, things that I need to approve, etc. That's there. Me getting access to the things that I'm primarily involved in and be able to get to the different aspects of those elements, whether they be, you know, the work plan, the resource plan, the financial plan, etc., right here from my home page. I can have conversations, the recent ones that are applicable to me on the efforts that I'm on regarding, you know, comments regarding tasks or resources or project plans or things like that that we have are all available to me here, and I can drill into them from here, as well as alerts on things that might be coming up that are due for me. The idea is that every user can have this place as a hub of information for them in one-stop shop. Now, we talked about the strategy being the key piece on the upfront. And as I go into strategy, you can have any number of objectives and key results in here. For example, as I go in here and I look at the objectives and key results for launch a new product line, right? If I wanted to drill into this, I could we have configurable forms that allow us to capture the data elements that we want to capture around this objective. And in this particular case, we're characterizing it as far as what business unit it's for, what its goals are, some KPIs on it, when we want to get it done, financial aspects around it that we need, possibly how it prioritizes with some prioritization weighted formula based upon business drivers, and the associated key results that we have here. You can modify this form and add fields in drag and drop method easily within the OnePlan admin pages. Now, the key part is yes, we can use this to execute, but we can also use it to understand what else it's related to. So for example here, I don't have any real predecessors or successors that have to happen before or after me, but if I look at the runway and I look at this and the things we're related to, you can see that this objective now has 3 key results that it's aligned with, which in turn are aligned with different projects and epics within that, which in turn are aligned with different products in our product portfolio, and also aligned and maybe dependent in some way on the applications that we have here, as well as business capabilities and value streams. Once again, those associations are all possible by the robust portfolio management capability that we have here. Now, for example, if I was going to drill into the details around this, like for example, if this key result is at risk and it shows yellow, I could quickly pop out the data regarding this and take a look and see why is this at risk. And I can see that it's near-term delivery, it's almost there, but I'm only 50% completed, so it's at risk that we're going to make it in time. So the idea is I can go and look at that data and even drill into all the details around that should I want to. Maybe I have a product that I need to get to in order to make that happen and develop that. But the idea here is that we can have these strategic execution elements itemized within the plan and have them aligned with different other elements in the system. Now, ultimately, once we have a strategy in place, people are going to come up with ideas, right? And you can actually have a funnel and a portal that allows people to come in and submit their ideas as they see fit to the organization. And if I go in and look at one here like mobile application development, there's a product development effort. So we maybe need to engineer this, and there may be a business case narrative that you put in place. You might have to categorize it here by like business unit and type of project it is and what the goal is, for example. Once again, configurable. You might establish what it's going to take from a budget and what kind of benefits that we look like to return. You might have a prioritization method that generates a prioritization score. These things are all available to us here. As I come in and look at that, and there may be even an approval cycle that we go through. As we look and go to visualize this, right, we can see that actually we have the voice assistant integration that we're dependent on according to the precedence logic in our system. And the runway for this says that this mobile application development is supporting the objective of improved customer satisfaction as well as increased customer satisfaction score key result. It's also associated with our product called codename Pied Piper, and there's different applications that are in the mix that have to accommodate that or be looked at or considered as we do this, and it's part of a certain value stream. So once again, these things are all interrelated as we go through. Now, if I go back to the ideas list and I go to, let's just say, an all ideas view, you can either have prioritization scores in here based upon business drivers or other factors that drive that prioritization score on a calculated basis. We can also crowdsource and have people vote on these things. So for example, on this particular one, there's 2 total votes, and I've already voted on this as something that I think is important. So you can actually do some sentiment and some crowdsourcing on the ideas, as well as doing your own internal prioritization on these things. Now, if I go into the prioritization area, and I go into a prioritization view that's just focused on the prioritization parameters, this might be a good place for me to just show a live use of Sophia, as opposed to me just showing you one that we recorded. So in this case, I'm looking at a whole stable of ideas and requests, and I'm going to ask that based on priority and ROI, what 3 projects should we approve first and why? And it's going to analyze all the different dimensions of that. And it may take some minutes, because it's some seconds, because it is looking at not only what it knows from its general knowledge, it's also looking at OnePlan's knowledge of the product and the discipline of SPM, and then it's also looking at the specific data in your system here to come up with the answer that it's going to provide, or the suggestion it's going to provide to you. And as it does that, it's going to give us some ideas and maybe assess some things and look at some different dimensions of that we might not have looked at with our own surface human comprehension. In this particular case, it's saying the cybersecurity audit is not only high priority, but has strong strategic alignment and offers high return, and that proper security measures will help reduce the risk in the data breaches of other products that we have. And then it gives the same different rationale for the voice assistant integration and the customer relationship management. The idea is we're getting some assistance on the analysis here as we're going through that in the selection process. Now, ultimately, you can take these ideas or requests, and you can convert them. And you can take an idea and create it and convert it to a project, or whatever other type of effort that you might want to, and carry forth with it all the data we collected in this ideation or request stage. So it's one big continuum as we go on through. As I look at the project portfolio, we can structure this portfolio flexibly any way we want. In this particular case, I've got a primary hierarchy portfolio, and so we've got multiple portfolios in this view for different parts of the organization. We have programs within portfolios, and then we have projects and epics within those programs. And then should it be a more agile or product effort, perhaps we have down to a feature level that we want to track, as well as the things that we want to prioritize at this portfolio level. So as I look here and I expand this out with the primary hierarchy, you can see, for example, that I have icons over on the left-hand side. And this is that integration piece that we were talking about. This is where we have built-in connectors. OnePlan has its own OneConnect platform that allows us to connect other tools. For example, I've got this data warehouse migration that shows a Teams icon from Microsoft, meaning I'm using Teams for collaboration and content, but I don't have a scheduling tool in here, meaning I'm using the scheduling capabilities of OnePlan right here. I have ones here that are using Microsoft Planner, one that's using Azure DevOps. I got one that's using Smartsheet, Jira, Project for the Web, Project Professional. The idea here is you have the power of choice on the execution tools you want to use to roll up into the portfolio. Now, in this particular case, let me show you that this view here, which is primarily a KPI-oriented type of view, we have other views that might have more financial columns, maybe ones that have more effort columns, maybe ones that are more schedule-oriented, etc. But we can also flatten out this and strip out the hierarchy if we want to, and look at just the projects and epics that are in here, for example. And then we can slice and dice this by whatever metadata or data we carry around our projects. So for example, as I look at this, though I have a primary hierarchy that I showed you, we could come into here and I could say, let's take this list of projects and let's group them by business unit. And when we look at it by business unit, it's now grouping and categorizing them by the different and summarizing them by those different, that piece of data. So here's all the application projects, capital planning, IT projects, et cetera. Product development projects are all right here. We can even filter down by those same parameters if you want to just focus on those. We might have categories of projects. So for example, like very quickly, I can just pivot this and look at this by the different things. That here's innovation, right? And other product and process improvement types of things. So we have different types of projects we can look at, and we have the flexibility to have as many slices and pieces of metadata we want around a project. We also have board views. So if you're taking more agile approaches to the way you work at these things, we can look at these in terms of board views. We could actually drag things in from the backlog if they're there. We can choose what columns we want by the data that's available. In this case, I'm looking at by the state of the project, and I'm color coding it by the status of that project. So for example, if I was curious about this marketing research, even though I can only show so much data on a card, I can come in here and still use that same quick edit feature to come in and see the details of why this thing is red, and determine here really quickly it's because the schedule's off track. Everything else seems to be tracking okay, but the schedule is lagging behind, right? I can even add, lanes into here. So I could go add swim lanes in here, and let's say a swim lane I wanted to put in here was by, say, category of projects. So I've got process improvement category. I've got strategic projects, right? I've got compliance projects, and I can look at them in a variety of different ways, and you're not limited in the number of different board views you might want to save into this, so that you can look at this in a variety of ways. This also is helpful for program increment planning. That's when we talked about going down to the feature level and be able to see what things fit into which program increments if you're using a more agile approach to these things. And then we have the roadmap views. That roadmap is automatically generated. Unlike some tools where you basically have static created roadmaps, it dynamically generates these roadmaps. And we can correlate these things with events and different things up top that allow us to put in context when these things are going to be delivered and related to other things. In this case, I've got the swim lanes on these by business unit, but I could do it by other things. Once again, I could do it by, say category, or by, who the manager is, whatever makes the most sense, what product or product line we're looking at, whatever data we're carrying around these projects, it's up to us to look at it that way. Now let's go into the portfolio list view again, and I'm going to go into the portfolio summary view. And this is one that's using the traditional hierarchy with multiple portfolios, different programs within those portfolios, and then all the different detailed initiatives within those. Now, with this here, I could bring up Sophia, for example, and I could ask it an analysis question. I'll say, which 3 projects are at the highest risk of failure and why? If I'm looking to see, maybe I'm assessing what other things that have come down the pike that maybe I would like to suspend something on one of these and maybe replace it with another project, or what other various areas. So here's the social media marketing strategy is off track, and it's not meeting expected targets and posing high risk of failure. Market research, which we already showed was red before, brand management marketing. So these are the types of things in analysis that we can get out of this to help alert us to or prioritize the things that we may want to suspend or stop if they're not going to succeed. Now, if I drill into a project like this product launch, right, which could be engineering related, there's different dimensions on this. So for example, we have the details, which once again, a configurable details form that is categorized. So remember the things that we slice these by, things like business unit, we have value area, we have who the manager is, we have category, we have the goals, etc., the alignment of the strategies that we have. And the idea there is we have that as well as a life cycle or stage approach for this. And in this form can capture all the data you want, your prioritization scores and the mechanism you use to get there, things that we're related to from an enterprise architecture perspective, right? The epic schedule, the financial snapshot of where we're currently at, where we're at from the burning of effort on the resources, etc., and the KPIs. But once again, this is a suggestion from a template, but you can modify these any way you like. On the work plan side of things, just like we have plan types at the portfolio level, portfolio program, we have work types here at the work item level. And for example, we have a schedule work type that's conducive to more waterfall type planning. You can look at this and interject your Gantt chart and things like that at any given point in time, right? More waterfall in its nature. You can connect this. Now, even though this one was basically built using OnePlan, you could connect it, should you enable these connectors, to other popular tools and have the source of this data come from these other tool sets. We also have a backlog work type. This is one where you can start building out things like your user stories, features, etc., as you build a backlog into this. And you can also build sprint plans as you go through here. So you can allocate certain things to sprints, etc. So for example, I could have sprints with thresholds and maximums for points, story points or hours, etc. And I can see which ones are in which sprints as I go on through. The key there is that you can do the agile planning in here, and even in the same project, you can have portions of it that are agile and portions of it that are waterfall and have them in the same plan, but in different work types within here. And the same thing is so true with logging issues, risks, changes, key decisions, etc. So once again, all the work items can be brought here very quickly into one place, and give one place for your actual team members and your resources to actually see those things all in one place when I get to the My Work area in a little bit. Now, the other piece is the resource plan. We can actually have resource plans that allow us either from the top down or bottom up, determine what resources are required. We can plan with generic resource types and named individuals or some combination of both. And we can plan in terms of hours or percentages or FTEs. And this is really giving us the ability to plan out the resources that are required. Let's say I just quickly switched and toggled FTEs, I can see what that means, but it always has an eye on the total picture. So for example, even though I only need a half an FTE of Oscar here in this month, he's already allocated, he's already 2 times allocated to other things, meaning he's got an overage of 1.5 times. Now, we have this in demo data to illustrate a point, but I'd say I would suggest to you that if you have this kind of visibility constantly all the time, the likelihood that you would get somebody that over allocated in a period of time diminishes greatly as you have a visibility in what somebody's already on before you give them yet another piece of work. Now, in there, we also have the financials, and the financials and the labor costs can actually come from that resource plan. So you can actually, by the rates on the resources, drive the financial aspects of that, but also track non-labor categories on a time phase basis and actually track those things. In this case, I'm tracking a budget, but I also have a forecast, a revised forecast, actuals, and even benefits and or revenue. And you can compare these different cost types, as we would say, and have a cost category structure that is conducive to the way you do business. So the idea here is that you've got these types of things at a very detailed level. Now let me jump to the resource plan, because that individual resource plan I just showed you from a individual project basis, those are rolling up to an overall resource plan. And this overall resource plan is a culmination of all the things we talked about. And in this particular case, I'm looking at resources that are over and under allocated, and I can look at them once again, probably switch them to FTEs as I go through to see just to what degree and get these people are over allocated. And let's say, for example, I wanted to look at these things by role, not just by the individual resources. And since we're talking about engineering here today, let's see how we're doing in the engineer ranks. And I can see that I have Daniel Williams, who is very over allocated because he's on all these different projects in these time frames. I also see that I still have some things generically assigned to the generic engineer that still have to have names put on them, right? And in this particular case, I can use OnePlan to help reconcile that. So let's just say I wanted to find a named individual to go on this user interface enhancement. I can actually find candidates, and I can either go by criteria or have OnePlan say, give me a best match. And it says to me the highest match is this Steve Masters, who has 100% availability to take on this work. And I can actually select Steve, and I can actually replace him with that generic assignment up above and take on the bandwidth for that as we go on through. So we have this type of comparison, and resource negotiations are available between project and or resource managers if we want to enable that through here. So once again, we get that type of workload here. Now, I could come in here and I could just expand this out. And as I look at all these things, I could ask Sophia a question here. And one of the questions I might ask is, which resources are most at risk of failure due to workload? And as I ask the question, might give me some indication of where I have resource risk based upon the fact that I've overburdened some of these resources. And it's basically giving that, because I selected the engineering resources, it's giving me an answer focused on the engineering area, that it's the one that's most at risk here. Now, the other element that I wanted to touch on today is this area of the enterprise architecture, or the architecture area here in OnePlan. The reason is because even though I have a primary project portfolio, I can also have portfolios in here for products, for business capabilities, for applications, for value streams, for organizational entities, etc. And I can build this any way I like. But the common ones we see are the ones that are here. And as I look at, say, for example, an element in the product portfolio, let's just say I wanted to drill into the code name Pied Piper. And what you'll notice is that for all these different plan types and portfolio types, the forms are different. So you can have a variety of different forms that are conducive to the type of portfolio item that you're looking at. In this case, I've got a product vision canvas here that talk about the different areas, the vision, the mission, places for the SWOT analysis that's in there, as well as other data elements and maybe even a life cycle of the product that's available to me here. We can even track financials. We can even put a work plan in here for a release plan against these products as we go on through. So as we're engineering this, not only in this case I've got this by year, but the cost of this product's going to be, but I can even have a work plan here that lays out maybe the life cycle of the release cycles and other things that I have in here associated with that. And once again, we saw how this is aligned with other things. So if I go to visualize this, like we did earlier with the other components, I can see there is a precedence logic that it has with something else that it's a predecessor. But once again, it has its own runway of how it's driving a key result and objective, and which projects and epics it's aligned with, as well as the business capabilities. So once again, that same concept is here in a product-centric basis as well. I guess the last piece that I'll touch on is the what-if modeling. And in the what-if modeling, it allows us to, take a subset of candidate projects and active projects and do some analysis and modeling on that as we go through. Like I might have one that's just strictly a product backlog prioritization on our product stuff, right? And I could come through here and take a look at these are the things we're considering doing, and I can, take a look at, different scenarios. If I only had a $3 million budget, what could I do and which selections could I do to get me within that budget threshold? And I can maybe say, what if I had $5 million, $2 million, what would that look like? And as I go through something like that, I can analyze the comparisons of the different budgets and what the benefits and what the points or resources that would be required around those things, and compare those different analyses as we go on through here. As we look at, something that maybe had a more comprehensive analysis in there, I'll go into a different model. And as I go through here, and as I look at, what it's going to take to do, say, a $10 million budget within this, I can see what's been selected on this $10 million budget. I can see that what I did, fits roughly within that $10 million budget, because that's what I asked it to do. And I can also see the veracity of the resourcing to see, is it a reasonable plan? It looks like I only have a couple hotspots on resourcing, so it looks like a very doable plan. And I can also then, compare certain things. For example, in this scenario, I could look at a bubble chart, and that bubble chart would say, these are the things I selected. How are they on a prioritization versus benefit score? And they all look like they're sitting pretty well, and the bubbles are the size of the budgets on these things. And I can also lay in the ones I didn't select to see if there's any standouts of things that I probably should have selected that I didn't. And our visualizer comes in really handy here, because we can take a look at what we selected and see what kind of unselected predecessors and successors exist to see if we overlook something and see if we might want to reconsider our scenario based on those types of things as we go on through here. So once again, there's a lot of capabilities here to reconcile. And once again, this is a what if scenario, so you're not impacting data no matter how many manipulations you do at this point. We can analyze this freely without any problems. Now, if I go into the, if I get out of this and I go into, say, more of a, go into this alignment view, let me ask it, out of this scenario, maybe I'll ask Sophia to give me some suggestions. Like, for example, let me say, what project should we consider moving from out to in and why? Because we do have certain things we selected out and selected in. And maybe there's some things that might want us to consider and give us a reason for why. And because once again, we may not have considered everything. So it says we should consider moving the predictive maintenance project from hold to active. Okay, it has relatively high prioritization, expected to provide significant benefits, and also some cost savings. So the idea here is it's giving us its idea of a candidate that we should maybe reconsider our position on. So once again, helpful in that mix. So, and I guess the only things I'll flash at you right now because of time is there's a My Work area where anything that a person's working on is available for them to not only status with % complete, or even put notes or comments around these things, right, as we go through to communicate with others on that mix. Got one place to put for that. And if you need to report time, there's a timesheet that's already built in here that you can report time right in here without having a separate timesheet system.